What is up? Excuse me. Welcome to day number 6 of the 7 days of certainty home stretch here. And as I do, I'm just going to just jump right into the slides and get rolling. All right. So as you know, if you've watched the previous 5 days at this point, why am I doing this? Well, I'm a capitalist pig. I've got a book coming out on October 14th. So I guess 2 days from now, called Rigging the Game: How to Achieve Financial Certainty, Navigate Risk, and Make Money on Your Own Terms. And so I'm here sharing excerpts from the book, content from the book, and trying to give you a practical application of it. It's a bit of a snapshot into the book and a snapshot into what we cover in the Certified Certainty Advisor program. If you want to get more information, there's a bunch of links below the video: www.riggingamazon.com, CertaintyApp/rigging the game. Those are different ways you get involved. Of course, I have a book bundle that you can purchase. Again, link is below if you want to get lifetime access to the last 5 days of videos today and tomorrow, lifetime access to the replays, and access to a virtual VIP day that I'm doing on Friday, launch day. Now, like, share, comment, do all those things, help me out. Would really appreciate it. Now, today's agenda is our continued discussion on the biggest risk outside of death, which is not getting what you want out of your life. So how do we get what we want on our terms without compromise? That is the essence of certainty. The way that I've defined it, certainty is getting what you want on your timeline without compromise. We're not going to become somebody else. There's a lot of evidence to why becoming someone else is going to almost guarantee that we're not going to get what we want. Now let's jump into our quote of the day. This comes from one of my favorite books, How to Fly a Horse, from Kevin Ashton, the inventor of the Internet of Things. And he says, the greatest test of your expertise is how explicitly you understand your assumptions. Assumptions are key because we talked about in previous episodes about every system is perfectly designed to create to get the results it gets. And if you look at an assumption, a system, complex system, it has a set of assumptions. In my book, in the Certainty Operating System, I just call them commandments because I believe that the power of linguistic action, calling it a commandment, makes you more likely to not violate it. Because it seems like I'm going to put my life in peril if I do. So how explicitly do we understand our assumptions? Those assumptions and biases are underlying our day-to-day behavior. Now, yesterday, we talked about first we optimize, then we maximize. So how does that work in practice? Well, there's a reason why I gave this quote from Kevin Ashton. Well, there's a bunch of reasons, but in particular, How to Fly a Horse is a book about innovation, and it dispels a lot of the myths that we have around how the creationism happens in innovation. He dispels a lot of those myths. I highly recommend it. Of course, read my book first, then go buy that book afterwards. And so what's the tie-in? Well, today I want to talk about this other quote from Stephen Shapiro. We only innovate where we differentiate. So back to maximizing, we're trying to do everything. And we've got a bunch of different ideas, maybe over the weekend, because we're a problem solver. We've got some anxiety, so we come up with some problems just so we have something to solve. And then on Monday, we come in, we've got some new thing that we're going to implement. And we call it innovation. Well, innovation brings up, of course, the diffusion of innovation, and does it make sense? And where are we on the diffusion curve, and a bunch of other things around that. But before we even get into that conversation, is it even worth putting time into this and other currencies that we've talked about, like energy, money, etc.? Because if it's not where we differentiate, then we shouldn't be spending time there. At least this is one of my core principles, is that if it's not where we differentiate, we're not going to spend time innovating. In other words, this asks the question, is this endeavor even worth pursuing with the required resources? If not, then we just find someone that's already doing it well and we copy it. I've made a career out of doing that on the tax planning side. See, the way the system is designed and the tax planning side of things is that big corporations, sophisticated investors, they have a lot of money at stake. And so what are they willing to do? They're willing to go to tax court. See, Congress writes the rules, the IRS interprets them. And then ultimately, if you disagree, you go to tax court. So tax court is really the final arbiter on how the law is going to be implemented. And so if you disagree, then you can go to tax court and push back. Now, what comes from that is public information. We can see the results of that court case. That becomes authoritative guidance that we can use in our decision making. And so what this is to tie back to, we only innovate where we differentiate. Well, I'm working with small business owners who don't typically have an appetite to go to tax court, nor do I have an appetite to spend time in litigation in a tax court either. But what we can do is because of the way the system is designed, these big corporations, sophisticated investors, they're taking the risk kind of on our behalf, not intentionally, but it becomes public domain, part of the public domain information. Then we copy. The Augusta loophole is a good example of that. Various real estate strategies to minimize your tax up to reducing it 100%. These are all things that have gone through the tax court, and we can now copy what the IRS has decided is necessary documentation. And we can also look at IRS audit manuals based off these tax courts to see how the IRS is going to audit this. And then we copy that. We don't have to be innovative. We can simply copy it. The fact that we're doing planning in and of itself with clients is innovative in the CPA space. But for our clients, they don't want to innovate on the tax planning side because it's not where they differentiate. They just want to copy what's already out there. That's already a solid strategy that we know the risks. But we can apply this to pretty much every domain of our business and our life. Why are we allocating resources to this thing that doesn't differentiate us in our identity, doesn't differentiate our business? In which case, we can take the resources that we're going to put towards this idea that we had and reallocate it to our most important priority. Yesterday, I talked about relative priority and ranking things. We take these resources that aren't where we differentiate and we reallocate them to our top priorities, what we're actually optimizing towards. In doing so, we recover so much. We recover a lot of bandwidth, right? Because we've reallocated it. But now we're going to get closer to what we want faster. Now, a couple little notes. Steven Shapiro breaks down all good differentiators include each of the 5 attributes. Is it distinct? Is it durable? Is it disruption proof, desirable, and disseminated? Now, in our CCA course, we spend a good amount of time on these concepts and really break these down in detail. Some purposes here, I'm not going to spend time on that today. But go through the projects that you're working on right now in your business that you've earmarked as innovative. Ask the question, is it where we differentiate? And then if you say yes, then go through, is this distinct? Is this durable? Is this disruption proof? Is this desirable? Is this disseminated? And if you say no to any one of those things, then you need to reconstitute what you're working on because it's not differentiated enough to give you the competitive advantage or get you what you ultimately want from this action that you're taking. Okay. All right. So you can probably see how this all fits together in terms of the recovering, reallocating resources towards the thing that you're optimizing towards. Now, my experience is that most of us are not going to do this. You're not going to apply this thing that I call an issue processor because we're unwilling to discontinue what I call anxiety-driven work. Actually, I don't call it that. I got it from a book called The Messy Middle. Again, hold off on reading that book, go read my book, then go get How to Fly a Horse. Then you can think about reading The Messy Middle. But in that book, the author talks about anxiety-driven work. It's like being very fastidious with checking your email, being constantly looking on social media alerts, so on and so forth. And you chalk it up to, I'm just being productive. I have to do this. But actually, it's not moving you forward on things. And so we have all these tasks and things that we're doing that are really anxiety driven. And a lot of the things that we're calling innovation are oftentimes driven by a base level of anxiety. We're trying to create a problem so we have something to solve. Or I've talked about naming the puppy. It was your idea. And so once you give birth to an idea, it becomes your own, and things that you own, you're much more likely to protect Makes sense if I'm going to protect my house more than I'm going to protect my neighbor's house. And so that happens with our ideas. We get this idea, we get locked into it, and then we're unwilling to move off of it because it was our idea. I call that naming the puppy, right? So I like to always share reasons why we wouldn't do this, because it's sort of obvious. Yeah, why would I spend time innovating on areas I don't differentiate? Why would I do that? Makes sense. But then we continue to do it anyways. So why is that? Okay, so I'd encourage you on all the things that you're working towards, why to ask yourself that question. Why do I continue to do this if it's no longer serving me? Because as I say, I reserve the right to change my mind. And if I'm doing things that aren't getting me closer to what I actually want, then what's the point? So thanks for tuning in today. I'll be back tomorrow to tie this all together and wrap things up. I really appreciate your time. Take care. Bye.